Before listening to this show, you should watch chapters 15 and 16 of The Mandalorian on Disney+. Spoilers ahead. Hello! Welcome to a special edition of Galactic Initiative. I'm your host, Jeff. I spoke with a friend, same first name, on the day of The Mandalorian's Season 2 finale. The following abridged conversation drifts from topic to topic and leaves out many key parts, but it captures the moment for two hypercritical Star Wars fans. Galactic Initiative will revisit this chapter for a comprehensive breakdown in the future. As you listen, bear in mind we love Star Wars. Yes, we discuss what is missing, what could have been, and what we wished to see, but we enjoyed the episode and the season very much. David and Sean will rejoin me for the first show of 2021, The Mandalorian Chapter 6. So now, join Jeff and Jeff for analysis of Chapter 16, The Rescue. Enjoy the show.
Give me regular reports, please.
Whew, that was a lot. So, I mean, where to begin?
Well, actually, let's start with last week's episode. And I'm just trying to rack my brain as far as the setup is concerned. Freeing the prisoner. Why is this so important? If they revisit it in season 3, fine. But I could go back to multiple points in season 1 that they didn't revisit. So even if they're trying to loop us in for a bigger story, when episode 24 comes along, shame on you for not being a super fan.
So last week's episode with Mayfeld from chapter 6, The Prisoner. Mayfeld returns, helps the Mandalorian, has a little story arc of his own. I mean, the episode is really, it's about him.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't do a whole lot to advance the main plot, Grogu's rescue. The only piece that deals with Grogu and Moff Gideon is the location of Moff Gideon's cruiser.
Yeah, needing to identify it.
Yeah, but we have the politics of, Republic versus Empire. Then we have Mayfeld's PTSD after indicating that it doesn't matter which side you choose. He chooses a side by the end of the episode and they let him go. How confident are you that he will return at some future point?
I'm hopeful. I'm more hopeful than confident. It would make sense that he gets captured even though he was let go. And that's how Mando is somehow identified.
Are you thinking Mayfeld will be captured by the Imperial Remnant or recaptured by the New Republic?
I don't have an opinion either way. I really don't know.
One side will capture him.
Yes.
Okay.
The way you and I look at things to keep the momentum of the story and keep it relevant, you don't need to boomerang everybody, but to the extent the entire episode was about him, he needs to come back at least one more time.
I mean, 2 episodes featuring the character spread across 2 seasons. Yeah, it's likely he'll be back. And I like what you said about, I like the phrase you used, boomerang. It feels a bit like a comic book in the sense that no one's ever really gone. Fennec Shand returned and she was shot at point blank range in the stomach. she came back.
Exactly.
So if she can make it back, Mayfeld can make it back. I was confused by the terminal allowing Din Djarin to have access as he inserts removes his helmet and inserts the code cylinder. These words appear on the screen and I was very curious. What's he looking at? It was unclear. There were a list of departments at that base, but why does he have access, or why is he granted access to an Imperial terminal?
You would think that's private information to identify where Imperial cruiser is. That shouldn't be public information. That's like asking, so patrol officer, what exactly is your route and when do you take it?
Right. I'm just asking. I'm just making conversation. Where do you keep all your light cruisers?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, the code cylinder grants some enhanced level of access, but then the facial scan in conjunction with the code cylinder doesn't make sense. Okay, you've got a code cylinder. Yes, you're granted whatever access the original owner had. But then the facial scan wouldn't match the owner of the code cylinder. You've stolen it, so once the machine scans you, you'll be denied because it will recognize that, hey, you're not Officer so-and-so.
Well, that, and I mean, incorporating that entire scene, the other dude is just walking around without his helmet on. So,
oh yeah, Mayfeld, right?
Yeah. So if you're the driver and your uniform has the helmet, and there were other characters in the backdrop walking around, I don't recognize you. I've been on this base I've been stationed here for how long, and I don't know who you are.
Right. Yeah, I had the same thought. So it's a large base, but you have squads, then you have platoons. I mean, everybody on some level has seen everyone, maybe doesn't know everyone, but has seen everyone. And never putting the helmet back on seems to fly in the face of Imperial protocol. Okay, you took the helmet off, this super stressful situation trying to get the Rhydonium back to the base in the Juggernaut, but as soon as you're back, all right, you need to put your helmet back on. We have uniforms here, son.
Exactly, we have protocols, yeah.
That's a great point. Obviously, for the scene with the Imperial officer, and I believe his name was Hess, for that conversation, obviously, you want the helmet off because Mayfeld needs to emote. But everything up to that point, brother, you got to put your helmet back on.
True. A certain level of common sense.
And I enjoyed the episode, but walk forward, their purpose there, so they could have just as easily scaled the outside of the building. It would have been faster and less dangerous. And is that the only terminal in the entire base? But the scene in the mess where Mayfeld and Din Djarin sit down and they're basically forced into a drink with this hardcore old school Imperial officer. Did you like that scene?
I did, because it was a matter of I'm pissed. I lost friends. I actually have a heart, and this guy's an ass. But it's a covert operation, if you will. So I need to complete this mission. But now this is like just touching such a personal nerve that I need to act. And it wasn't even a matter of trying to be a good guy or not. It was just something that he cared about. Even criminals have feelings. If you chose the wrong path, that you still have a heart. You still have people you care about. So it was a way to make him relatable. But I did like that scene, the emotion of that scene. He actually got some acting there.
Operation Cinder. Did you make the connection with Battlefront 2? I thought of you. I thought of you immediately after the episode. We played Battlefront together. Did Jeff play Battlefront 2?
I did not play Battlefront 2, so okay. I did not make the connection. But again, I think what Disney's trying to do, the reference to Battlefront 2 and other things, they're bringing in all aspects. They're trying to salt and pepper in little pieces that, based on your level of fandom, you're going to appreciate, or you're going to have takeaway conversations like we're having right now, and compare notes, and did you catch this, and oh, that's a nice tie-in, but oh, they did this wrong. I think they're really putting in their best effort. As independent as each series may be, of course, they all tie in. The characters tie in. That's the obvious point. But there'll be something underlying the obvious that is going to tie things in.
I pride myself on all things Star Wars, but I know that I'm missing things. They're drawing from every corner of the Star Wars galaxy. Comics, video games, novels that are no longer supposed to be canon. They're going what's called Legends or Expanded Universe. They're pulling from that. They pulled from the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. They're pulling from the prequels. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. A friend said it's almost too much. He found himself getting fixated on things in the background or wondering if he'd missed something. That hasn't happened to me. I just accept that I'm going to miss some things and just let them go. But how about you?
My knowledge of ancillary stories and what have you isn't nearly as robust as yours. So having said that, from the first season, I watched 1 or 2 episodes a second time, but I haven't watched any of this season's episodes a second time. Anytime I enter into any episode or any of the trilogies, the first time I watch it is just pure entertainment. Now, if you talk to me in 3-4 months from now, and I can go, whoa, hey, wait a minute. I missed this 6 months ago. And I can revisit that conversation.
Do you think in putting the show together that Favreau and Filoni have reached everyone from casual fan to hardcore fan?
I do. And again, just in the conversation, we're pointing out the video game and books and things that were supposed to be sunset or not included. But Disney does have a little bit of flexibility there to say, well, we did buy everything. We don't have to put these in the vault. And again, still reeling from the last 3 movies, trying to get back on better ground with all fans.
Great point. I felt that this season went deeper and touched more sources, and certainly more obscure sources, than season 1.
I would agree. Again, based on my knowledge, it was definitely deeper, at some points darker. Yeah, so that's just a quick recap.
So today's episode,
we got to get into it. We got
absolutely, yeah. No, the season 2 finale.
All right, men, load your weapons.
The Dark Troopers. I played Dark Forces in the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, did we? I don't know. Did we play that game at the same time? I don't think so.
No, I did not play Dark Forces. There are 3 or 4 games that I flat out did not play.
Right. And I mean, it was early. It was pixelated. The graphics were terrible. It was a first-person shooter. There were moments, vivid moments of nausea and dizziness. Wow. So if you know it, if you're like, oh, yeah, Dark Troopers. If you don't know anything about the Dark Troopers, you're just like, oh, okay, Dark Troopers. Yeah, they're robots. Cool.
They couldn't make the Stormtroopers look any worse. To think it is like 40 on 1. I don't know if they're intentionally continuing that joke. How could they ever conquer the galaxy if a Stormtrooper can't hit anything?
I go back to Ben Kenobi's. These blast points, only Imperial Stormtroopers are so precise. Oh, okay. Based on the opening scene of that movie, yes, they're extremely precise. And you're absolutely right. In this, I feel like this started with Rogue One. These scenes where there'd be hand-to-hand combat, and you're throwing one Stormtrooper into 3, like a bowling ball into bowling pins, and it just became ridiculous. Yeah. For the sake of the story, you can't do it. And I'm thinking now, I'm reflecting on the 2 seasons of this show. Moff Gideon was supposed to make up for the incompetence of all of his deputies. And you're feeling confident, like, all right, well, he's got his stuff together. His planning, his strategy, he'll get it done. Nope.
Again, as we point out some of the intricacies that we are critical of, there's no tension, there's no secondary characters killed.
Yeah, it bothers me. Thinking back to the original trilogy, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, was only at the tail end of Return of the Jedi. The battle on the Forest Moon, weaknesses are exposed. There's just, I don't know, you need a credible enemy.
Move along.
How did Moff Gideon get the Darksaber from Bo-Katan?
Yeah, how did he win the sword to begin with? So is that a reflection of his skills or her skills?
Yeah, It's like he found it outside a restaurant. I mean, there's no way he beats her. So if you haven't watched the Clone Wars, if you haven't watched Rebels, what he gave you in the space of 20 seconds summed up the Darksaber.
Yeah, not to discredit Mando and his combat skills, but again, that scene needed more time if it's going to be that epic of a battle.
For that to feel climactic. Yeah, very much so. Now, Din Djarin has the Darksaber. Bo-Katan wants it. These 2 characters who have been uneasy allies, her larger goals now conflict with him. He's standing in the way. The 3rd episode of the 2nd season, where she's introduced, she seems much more level-headed and calm and qualified for leadership. And in this episode, she just seemed ruthless and power-hungry. I saw a different side of her. What do you think?
Agreed. Great observation. And I think it's desperation. And you start to realize, at least for that character, or the character of that character, might be more selfish than righteous. And it sets you up for season 3, where you're going to see the rivalry between Bo-Katan and the Mandalorian.
So Din Djarin didn't want the Darksaber and didn't want anything to do with leadership. He just wanted to rescue Grogu. Well, his feelings change. Now that Grogu is safe and gone, might he think, well, hey, Moff Gideon was right. Maybe she's not the person to lead us forward. And he is quickly strayed from the way. He's a foundling rescued by Death Watch. They are a fundamentalist sect of the Mandalorians. And for the sake of the child, he's cut a few corners and the helmet came off. I understand. But he's no longer dialed in to this creed he's been following for the majority of his life that has saved his life. This is his upbringing. This is his childhood, his indoctrination. And this season, it does seem like he's come around to get away from it.
I agree, but I think I would cite different reasons for it. His clan has been destroyed. There's no checks and balances. If he were to stray, and he's been introduced to other religions, and you take bits and pieces of other religions that relate to you as a person, he's scratching his head thinking, their way is different. Now, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but let me just focus on the fact that it's different. And that's where he finds himself with, I care about Grogu, and hopefully we cross paths again someday. And I want him to know it's me. So yeah, making these interpersonal connections and decisions. And then, of course, on the base, it was what was required. It was what needed to get done. And that was, again, the bigger picture of getting to Grogu. So he's now independent. He's no longer 100% all in with the Mandalorian way.
I thought we would see the armor again. And I thought for the sake of the push and pull, the competition for Din Djarin's soul, I thought we would see her again after meeting Bo-Katan. He would have questions. So tell me a little bit more about our way. How did this come to be? Because I met some other folks who claim to be Mandalorians, and they fight like Mandalorians. But they take their helmets off. They're a little bit, they don't have to go to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that, please? That's the kind of thing I thought that'd be a great scene too. I thought we were headed for some sort of soul searching moment with Death Watch, with the folks who raised him.
Yeah, that would be interesting. See, and you bring up another good point. These painstaking measures to pull in video games, novels, animated series, but yet in its own series, to go back to what I said earlier, it doesn't boomerang a character that had relevance.
Yeah, really important one. Certainly more important than Mayfeld.
And one episode I can't get out of my head, somehow, some way being pulled back to that village with that woman and her child. And I'm glad they didn't. Why would you have that episode if you don't? And to your point, where the armorer, her forging his armor, but don't bring her back.
Right.
If someone is of that level of importance in the Mandalorian creed, how can you not bring her back?
Bo-Katan talking to the armorer. I want to see those two in the same room. Strong women, leaders of their people, different approaches, different philosophies about what it means to be a Mandalorian. That would be a great scene to have the armorer and Bo-Katan. The thing is, Bo-Katan's not really all that different. When we meet her in the third episode of the second season, we get the impression that, all right, you can take off the helmet. The standards aren't as high to be in her crew as the standards to be in Death Watch.
Mm-hmm.
But then in this episode, she's very dogmatic. The Darksaber has to be taken in single competition. And her treatment of Boba Fett, you're not a true Mandalorian. You're a disgrace to the armor. You're a clone. He mentions his father, and she says, you mean your donor? These are the cracks starting to show in her image that she's trying to project strength and leadership, but she's as dogmatic as the armorer, just about different things. Why would she have such resentment toward the clones? Clones help save her people.
You're a clone, i.e. a first generation stormtrooper, i.e. the Empire. So you just keep connecting those dots, even though they don't align in that way. I beat your team, therefore I would beat the team that you beat.
Yeah, I can see it.
So just because I have to get this off my chest, the CGI was horrible. So with Luke, that was just, and they made him about 5'2".
Mark Hamill's not tall. And
He's not. But
say
like,
this as a man who is not tall. So I'm not looking down on Mark Hamill. We're eye to eye.
well, short for a stormtrooper.
Right, which he isn't actually. But anyway, that's a whole other, So, okay, so let me ask you this question. Did you watch it on your television?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I watched it on a computer screen, and it wasn't bad. So I'm thinking, well, once it's enlarged, it's going to get sketchy, because you're not the first person to say this. But when I watched it, I thought, well, they did a pretty good job. I mean, there are a few things, but it looked okay.
They got the fine details right, the cleft in his chin. I mean, like, the likeness wasn't bad. They made it look as if he was sweating a little bit, actually. How can I put it? They gave him the Return of the Jedi look, but his actual skin wasn't smooth like a human skin. The sweat and scarring from being a little bit older and weathered, it just didn't all match up.
Compared to Tarkin in Rogue One, or Leia in Rogue One, what would you have done differently? Could it have been fixed?
Yeah, it could have been fixed. First off, I don't think there was any upgrade between those previous two characters. I think they just recycled the technology as opposed to improving upon it. I think they could have given him a different outfit, some brown, not just the jet black, to show some progression. They made it seem as if The Mandalorian is not 6 or 7 years after Return of the Jedi. It was 6 months ago.
So you want to see some changes to the costume. You want to see some signs that, as good as he was at the end of Return of the Jedi, he's even grown since then. You want to see that reflected in his appearance?
Reflected in his appearance. They did reflect it in his Jedi skills, crushing that one Dark Trooper. That was awesome.
The last Dark Trooper. That's amazing. I love that. Oh, he held up his hand and he crushed it with the Force. Yeah. Oh,
a darker use of the Force. So you could see him dabbling on both sides as he meditates. And so, like, give me 5 o'clock shadow. Give me something. Give me a battle scar.
Right. Visual cue.
So, yeah. Yep. But give me something.
How would you feel? How would you have felt about a beard mustache combo? Facial hair.
Yeah. Like Obi-Wan and Clone Wars. Yeah. Give me the mustache. Give me a goatee. Give me something unique.
Lamb chops, little chin strap, maybe.
Or my favorite would be like the Spaniard. Give me like the little curly mustache. Kind of like the evolution. So facial hair and your Jedi gi, 2 things you could have done to show me that he's been meditating and he's connected to the Force.
Okay, so the CGI, not great, but did you have the emotional connection? When the hood came down, did you feel it?
Oh, I felt it. I was in
when the X-Wing came into view, did you feel it?
That was an exciting moment. That was almost a "where were you" moment. Oh my God, it's Luke! Like I had to say it out loud. I was so excited. It wasn't my inner dialogue. It felt good. It felt really good. It felt like a hero's return, because you knew that they weren't going to survive the dark troopers coming through.
He dispatches every dark trooper,
and in different ways too. In different ways.
Yes, they're all gone. The fighting style, the fight choreography was amazing, because it looked exactly like Luke, but 5 years later. Better, deeper connection to the Force. Saw some of the moves from Return of the Jedi. It was great. I thought it was an excellent balance.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he was doing triple flips like a Jedi from the Clone Wars. Like, no, that's Luke. Those are Luke's moves, just +3 on the ability level.
Yeah. I mean, you could sense in Luke, it's maybe less about dark and light and more about controlling your emotions. The ability isn't bad. The person wielding it is bad. What's your intent behind using this? I mean, he's not using Force lightning, which is inherently bad, but just shy of that.
Well said. Yeah. From the hangar, he comes onto the bridge. the hood comes down. How did you feel about his mannerisms? Now, if you could step outside the CGI for a moment, we're acknowledging some issues there, but the voice, the words, the interaction with the other characters.
I think it was accurate. I just went through killing 30 Dark Troopers, but I need Grogu. That's why I'm here. Like, you know, it's just like this heightened level of violence to I'm here for Grogu. And everyone there, having watched what's going on, they're not going to challenge the person that just sliced through all those Dark Troopers. The other characters had a little bit of awe. And I guess the one curiosity I have, do they know who Luke is? But I think his calm demeanor, the interaction, the engagement, it was spot on. There was no emotion. It was matter of fact, because we're not here to negotiate anything. I'm here to ask you politely for Grogu.
Cara Dune should know him. How could one be a member of the Rebel Alliance and not know Luke?
Mm-hmm.
Luke destroyed the first Death Star. He became a general.
And even Moff Gideon to that extent.
Yes, this is your enemy. This is the reason you need the Grogu juice, because you don't have a Force user to match up with Luke. So maybe there's a continuity issue there. It's not critical, but it does raise some questions.
It does. And I have a couple we don't have to discuss all these questions now, but I want to rattle off a couple questions before we forget.
Yeah,
the Grogu juice, okay, his midichlorians,
his blood.
Is that used for the Emperor? How does Snoke come into play here? And this is, again, 5 years removed from the Emperor being killed. So is that what they use? Do they use Grogu's midichlorian count?
That would seem to be the connection, that they used Grogu's blood to reincarnate Palpatine and create Snoke. But I no longer believe we're headed for the sequel trilogy.
Well, yeah, they're not going to connect.
Disney won't retcon the sequel trilogy, but by not tying stories and merchandise to it, I no longer think we need to worry about Emperor Palpatine and Supreme Leader Snoke.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I mean, somehow, some way, you do have to connect some other cloning project. For all we know, Palpatine goes out to the Outer Rim to the cloners and tie that
Dexter.
Give you a hug with 2 arms while I pull up my pants.
Hey,
hey, that's a saber dart.
Oh, buddy. Nice. Dr. Pershing has the Camino cloner patch on his uniform. He's a clone engineer. Again, Favreau and Filoni can't say enough good things about the work they've done, connecting all these dots from the different time periods. So what connections would you make? Where would you take that? If they're not cloning Snoke and Palpatine, who or what would they be cloning?
I don't want to just fast forward to Palpatine, because that's doesn't make sense. But man, I don't know. I mean, I got a couple ideas going, but they're all half baked, and I'm battling against myself as they enter my imagination. I don't know. I'm not loving my ideas.
Can we agree that we need a new villain?
Yes.
What if they found a Force user, a child, and they used Grogu's blood to enhance and essentially supercharge him or her to create a really powerful dark side being?
Yeah, I like where you're going. How about a bitter survivor from Order 66?
Okay, so a fallen Jedi?
Thank you. The council misguided us. This should never have happened. And now that I can study on my own, I'm going to find out what the dark side's all about.
Yeah, either way, we create a new, interesting villain with layers. I like it. We've already improved on the sequel trilogy.
Yes, we have. Have.
All right, so Luke in Return of the Jedi, he becomes very quiet. He has an introspective vibe about him. It worked for me. Yeah, he would say those things. It was very much in character.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, a lot of loose ends. And again, I know there's going to be another. Well, I don't know, but there's going to be another season, and we'll get those answers. One would suspect.
Did you make it through the credits?
I made it through the credits and the Book of Boba.
December 2021. Based on Investor Day last week and the reveal of all the projects, Mandalorian Season 3 is not the Book of Boba Fett. I don't know if Din Djarin will show up, but I think we will not see him next year.
Do you know what's going on?
Okay, so you come back and kill Jabba's right-hand man.
Bib Fortuna.
But what is Boba Fett going to do? You have that grudge. Again, it's much like a mafia family. You have your grudge against that family that you used to work for.
I can't understand why Boba Fett would be motivated to take over leadership of a crime syndicate. Fett's both father and son. I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the universe. You pay me, I'll work with you, but I don't take sides. And frankly, bigger picture, I really don't, as much as I like having him survive the Sarlacc pit, I did not like the treatment of him. He's not a sidekick. He is a far more menacing and powerful character than that.
Oh, completely agreed. And I don't want to see the 40 and over Boba Fett. Like, I have no interest in seeing the pre-retirement Boba Fett, the senior level management Boba Fett. No, I want to see the guy on the way up. I want to see the guy that's ruthless. I want to see his anger watching his dad get killed. I want to see how that messes with his head. I want to see to what, and again, that's maybe it's just the dark side of me coming out, but what does that do to a kid? He's what, 11? Yeah, you're a Mandalorian, but you're a clone. So does he have racism going on? He's just got all these things pulling at him. Because it's got to be a higher sense of hate than Anakin to some extent.
Clone Wars handles it a little bit, young Boba, but we never really see the transition from angry teenager to adult because the show ended. He seemed lost. He seemed like a great character without a purpose in this show. I mean, I loved seeing Slave One. We got a lot more with that ship. That ship is awesome. Oh, that ship is so cool. But that's about it. He doesn't really have anything to do.
In the thralls of this series, it was excitement. Now looking back, it seems forced. And it's like, all right, we got to give them what they want. Because I felt very different 3 weeks ago.
I mentioned in a previous show how much I would have liked a rivalry. Din Djarin is establishing himself as the greatest in his region of space, perhaps the entire galaxy. But now, Boba Fett. Boba Fett isn't Din Djarin's enemy, and yet who's paying?
Yeah, or going after the same target.
Yes, and I thought that dynamic would have been fantastic.
Our discussion of The Mandalorian Chapter 2 season finale has come to an end. Thank you to Jeff for being a special guest of Galactic Initiative. Look for The Mandalorian Chapter 6 coming soon. If you enjoyed the show, please give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.
Galactic Initiative is not authorized or endorsed by Lucasfilm Limited. The name Star Wars and all related materials are registered trademarks of Lucasfilm Limited, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, all rights reserved. Galactic Initiative is a registered trademark, and other product and company names are trademarks of their respective holders. Use does not imply affiliation or endorsement.